Good morning. How are you? Terrific. You know, my brother's a physicist, and I was talking to him the other day because I said, how do I introduce myself to a group of people, you know, highly educated scientists, research scientists, all these people? And I said, well, Jim, tell them you're a model speaker. They'll understand what model means since they're model builders. And I said, okay, I'll do that. So I introduced myself yesterday morning as a model speaker. What he didn't tell me until later was, Jim, you have to look up model in the dictionary, which I did. You can do the same thing. It says model, noun, a small replica of the real thing. I'll get him for that. You know? I do want to talk to you about some lessons learned from our research on leadership. And that is, first of all, that credibility is the foundation of leadership. What do we expect from leaders? Most look for and admire in a leader. On a checklist, 20 items from ambitious through supportive. These are the 4 things which consistently end up on top. They look like this in order of preference: honest, forward-looking, inspiring, and competent. And we consistently have found this over the nearly 20 years that we've been collecting this information. Now, I've written several books, one of which is called Credibility: How Leaders Gain and Lose It, Why People Demand It. Well, this was the start of that book, the consistent findings that these are the 4 things people look for and admire in a leader, someone whose direction they would willingly follow. But it's 4 words in an entire, doesn't make an entire book. So we looked at something in the literature, Barry Posner and I, called source credibility. Now, source credibility is why you believe and I believe someone when he or she speaks. So people have tried to understand what is it that makes up the criteria we use to decide whether or not someone is believable to us. And these are the 3 criteria: trustworthiness, expertise, and dynamism. Do I trust this person? Somebody's delivering a message. One of the first screens that the information goes through is, do I trust this person? The second thing is, does this person know what he or she is talking about? Do they have competence? Not only competence in the job, but also do they understand me, my needs, how what they're trying to talk about will fit with me? And lastly, are they dynamic, energetic, enthusiastic? Now, why does the last one relate to credibility? Why is dynamism related to credibility? They're emotionally engaged. When somebody's emotionally engaged, not just intellectually engaged, we give them a little bit more believability. It's infectious. It's catching. We catch that same enthusiasm. And when you catch that, what do you want to do? You want to jump on board too. You are more likely to believe the message when those things are present. Now, I'd like to have you look at what we look for in a leader, according to the surveys we have done, Barry Posner and I, and look at the credibility index. What do you notice? For honest, you can say trustworthiness. For inspiring, you could say dynamic. And for competent, you could say expertise. There's a strong correlation between what we look for in the source of information and what we look for in a leader. In other words, credibility is the foundation of leadership. Now, we'd all like to think we are highly credible in the eyes of those we work with. And in fact, the more direct our relationship, the more likely it is we are believable. But let me give you just a little bit of a hint on a macro level as to how credible we are. When you ask how honest, trustworthy, upright, and ethical management is in general, 38% of frontline workers think we are honest, upright, and ethical, while 88% want us to be that way. That's a pretty big gap. There is no such thing as virtual trust. You cannot gain trust by email. Right, yes. Yes, we cannot gain trust unless we are face-to-face with another human being. If you don't believe that, just watch what animals do when they first meet each other. What do? They smell each other. That's absolutely right. I'm not suggesting that as a manifestation. However, there's something to be said for it. We have to believe, therefore, in the messenger, and there is something very important about that. So let's talk about how we can gain that. What is credibility behaviorally? What is it behaviorally? How do you know it when you see it? Doing what you say you will do. Exactly. You read the slide that comes next. You just knew that. Do what you say you will do. DWYSYWD, or DWIZZYWID for short. Now, there are a lot of other phrases that go with that. Practice what you preach. Put your money where your mouth is. Walk the talk. See? We have these phrases day in and day out that tell us what credibility is behaviorally. Do what you say you will do. Let me tell you a story about a woman named Gail Mayville. She worked for Ben & Jerry's ice cream. When this particular incident happened, let me tell you the story because it connects to the major message. You see, the waste treatment facility in a small town in Vermont was rather small, where Ben & Jerry's was located, and they were growing so rapidly that the local waste treatment facility was overflowing. So the local waste treatment facility, the township said, we are going to shut you down if you don't do something about this problem. Now, Gail Mayville was working for the organization at the time as an administrative assistant. Now, if you're an administrative assistant in Ben & Jerry's and you hear that the factory is about to be shut down, what do you think most administrative assistants would do with that information? Yeah, they'd pass it on, report it up, tell somebody else. But guess what else she did? She came up with a solution. As an administrative assistant, she came up with a solution. She said, you know, I grew up on a farm. And on the farm, there were some pigs. This is audience participation, right? I do like this. And she said, what do pigs love to eat? Anything. They'll eat anything. Slop. They love this stuff. So what should we do? Why don't we buy pigs for the local farmers, take the pigs out, put them on the farms, get some troughs, put the waste from the ice cream in the barrels, truck it out to the farms, pour it into the troughs, and see what happens. And guess what? They loved it. The pigs absolutely loved it. Except for mint Oreo. For some reason, I don't know. They didn't like mint Oreo ice cream. Maybe you and I ought to ask ourselves if we should eat that.